As President Trump speaks with Vladimir Putin and a discussion of a peace deal, the question, of course, becomes what is it that Vladimir Putin wants for peace? Well, the answer is going to be, of course, land. There's no way it's not a conversation about land. But I think maybe the follow-up question here is whether or not a peace can hold. And I have made my declaration on that. My answer is no. Long-term, lifetime, no. Let's not be silly. Tony Katz today. Good to be with you. Major Mike Lyons joins us right now. Retired United States Army West Point graduate, works with West Point to this day. He's on the live stream wearing the West Point gear. It turns out not a uniform, just a West Point shirt that he has promised to send me. I do want to get into the Russia-Ukraine conversation, the phone call between Trump and Putin, what a peace deal might look like, whether we think it's an actual peace deal or just a temporary halt for a couple years until Putin goes back at it. But I'd be remiss if I didn't start with the assault on the Houthi rebels in Yemen. The Houthi rebels, supported by Iran, they've been engaged in attacking of ships, U.S. and others in the Red Sea, in the Gulf of Aden, in the Suez Canal, changing shipping lanes. And we have had in the Biden administration what could be argued as a tepid response to them. Talk to me about what you see from this response from President Trump, whether you think it's too big, too small, anything in between, and what its goal is.
Well, Tony, the previous administration's response to everything was don't. This response now is it's about time. And I like what I've seen so far. I like the fact that we're going after their strategic weapons as they have capability, tremendous capability, in fact, to attack our U.S. warships that sit in the Red Sea as well as the Mediterranean. Attack into Israel. It would be great if the Israelis decide to help us as well. It's long overdue, and we can target them. However, this campaign could go on for months as they have tremendous capability. The Iranians have armed them to the teeth. They're, in third place behind Hamas and Hezbollah when it comes to terrorist proxies that the Iranians have. And so I think it's going to take some time before the United States declares victory here. And for one thing about this administration, as we get to know them, is they're not stopping until we get victory. And that means somebody on the other side says we surrender. So you're going to see a continuous barrage going after their drone capability, missile capability, and other military capabilities.
I think we discussed this the other day on the show. You weren't here, but you bring it up, and it's a solid point that the Houthi rebels are not these cave dwellers. They have an unbelievably sophisticated arsenal that has been given to them by Iran. I think the question people have is exactly what do we mean by sophisticated?
Yeah, Shahed drones, missiles, cruise missiles that can travel great distances. I mean, this is not a country that can produce them. They've clearly outsourced that to the Iranians. They've long threatened Saudi Arabia, our ally there within the Middle East, as they've been fighting the civil war in Yemen now for years and years. And they were used as that proxy to fight against Saudi Arabia. You have the Shia-Sunni divide that exists between those two countries there, as Saudi Arabia would like to be the hegemonic, the largest power within the Middle East, them coexisting with Israel. So the buildup's taken place over the course of the years, and you take Shahed drones and cruise missiles and the like, they could potentially hit something. U.S. Navy assets there have tremendous capability in order to protect and defend themselves, but there's just nothing like going on the offense, and they can't hide. As soon as every missile they fire has a return address. And as in the past now, where we just kind of let that go, right now, for every one that's being fired, I'm sure we're firing 3 or 4 right back at it.
Talking to Major Mike Lyons, retired United States Army. The purpose here, and we should be clear that the Houthi rebels and Saudi Arabia, the Houthis being a proxy for Iran, have been engaged in the civil war in Yemen, destruction of Yemen. And you are correct in this conversation of who is the hegemonic power. Saudi Arabia wants it, Iran wants it, and Turkey is just waiting in the wings, as they always do, to see where their opportunity is. The end result of this bombing raid is it possible? You talk about you wanting the Israelis to get in. Would this mean an end to the civil war in Yemen? Is that possible?
That's the next logical step. That's possible that that happens. Whether it's the Houthis that still remain in control of a very important piece of geography that exists in the world, as tremendous amount of ships go through the Red Sea there and in and out of the Suez Canal, and Navy warships and the like. So that is possible that you could see overthrow of that government. However, Yemen is one of the poorest countries in the world, remains that way. Tremendous famine, tremendous poverty exists there amongst the people. So the Houthis they've been like Hamas. They've not been anybody that's cared about the citizens and civilians there. So this is going to be a phase 5 operation. If that ends up happening, it would be in everybody's interest to go back inside of Yemen and try to help with the rebuild there. It won't be, maybe similar to something that could happen inside of Gaza that you're seeing there. But it's going to have to be a phase 5, which means reconstruction of that country.
Let me move you out and to just a little more north. Israel in this bombing of Gaza. Some people saying, well, I guess they don't think they're getting any hostages back because this is going to be the end of the end. It has been a significant bombing attack by Israel, as reported. Why do you think they made the move now?
I think that always they knew in the back of their minds that they were never going to get the peace settlement that they wanted. They now get to the point where they don't think any more hostages are alive and come back. And they've got to do what they can to get rid of the last vestiges of Hamas militants that are there. However, it's likely going to mean the Israeli army going back in. I know they withdrew in certain areas there. It's going to likely mean rooting them out. It's going to mean destruction of the tunnel. So I don't think we're at the beginning of the end. Maybe not even at the end of the end. There's going to have to be a significant military operation still on the ground, what we call a mountain within urban areas, in order to root out any last vestiges there. And still a better solution than the United States taking over it. Other countries will have to get involved, the Jordanians, the Egyptians, in order to make this not look like this genocide that some people in the media would like you think it is. This is a real problem that still exists from Israel's security, and they're not going back.
We can be clear: there is no genocide going on in terms of Israel perpetrating one. This simply is a lie on lie on lies told by the UN and others.
Yeah, and so I think the Trump administration would like to try to solve this. A lot of balls in the air now for them right now, but I think that they're turning this over to Israel for right now. And then when Israel says we're done, I think that's when you'll see more engagement from the United States. We still provide them all the rockets they need, all the missiles, the munitions, the intel. But this is clearly an Israeli fight for right now until such time that it's a situation where the United States can then back and re-engage.
As we know it, the call took place between Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin. This, of course, about Ukraine. Ukraine now gets military assistance from us again after a slight pause after the Oval Office dust-up. They now get intelligence sharing. The conversation, of course, is about whether or not Russia accepts a ceasefire deal. That leads to, what does a ceasefire deal mean to them? What do they get out of it, which could be land? And then most importantly, why would anybody trust Vladimir Putin long term? If you're on that first phone call, what is it that you're hoping Donald Trump is able to hear from Vladimir Putin?
Well, the best that he could hear from Vladimir Putin is that the Russian military stopped advancing. I mean, they have been onslaught the past couple of weeks, and since the president got involved, said he wants to help solve this. In particular, I think he's been the Russian military is really going after it. You saw Ukraine military withdraw from Kursk. That's that area that they had secured. And I think that the Ukrainians have kind of backed off, and they've just gotten to the active defense in some ways, but that hasn't stopped the Russians. So from the president's perspective, he wants the Russians to stop. Now, that might not still be good enough for Vladimir Putin, or Vladimir Putin might tell the president that he's stopping, but he really is not stopping. Because that's really why they went to war in the first place. People use war countries use war to accomplish these objectives that they can't get at the negotiation table. And if they think they could still accomplish them with combat, they're going to do that. And I'm not sure that Russia is at that spot yet, so I'm not sure they're going to stop.
Okay, now allow me to be a guy who throws a thought out, if not a flat out disagreement. You tell me. Russia has more bodies they can throw at this at Ukraine,
Mhm.
And if Russia has been decimated, but Ukraine has been tertiated, that's a third of your army versus a tenth of your army. Russia can outlast Ukraine. But Russia's not having any fun. They are losing people. All politics are local. Eventually, he starts looking into Moscow and St. Petersburg for bodies to throw at this thing, and it becomes a problem for him. He wants out of this. Is that
Mhm.
wrong?
Yeah, not sure if that's the case, only because within Russian DNA is this this imperialistic and this mentality of defending the motherland, and you still have a lot of folks that live in that area within Ukraine that are Russian speaking that has been virtually destroyed now at this point. So the spoils of war would go to Russia in some level, but they still haven't captured a lot of the landmass that they want or need from an economic perspective. They could take claim over Crimea and the coastline within the Black Sea, I guess, as some type of victory. I just don't know. It would tell me that Russia still has more capability than Ukraine, who is hanging on by a very thin thread. They still haven't
Right.
they haven't recruited where they need to in the younger generation. Many people have left the country. What would tip the balance is if the United States said to Russia, "Look, we're going to go all in on Ukraine. We're going to send every single piece of equipment we can possibly send." And we're going to do what we can. And if that's the case, then Russia might look at that as escalation. The previous administration didn't even want to go there. They might look at this as an escalation and start, deciding that they're going to do more. But Russia right now is in no position to threaten any other NATO country, given what Ukraine has done. Ukraine's done us a big favor. They've destroyed a great portion of the Russian military.
People forget that. People
Yeah,
forget that matters. That's
right.
another subject for another day. Major Mike Lyons, retired United States Army West Point graduate, a West Point guy to this day. Stay right there, Major Lyons. I appreciate you being with us. Much more is coming up. Find everything at TonyKatz.com. This is Tony Katz Today.